how to automate creating slide presentation from the data that you have. Let's say you have a data about a description of certain topics, their title, their link, image maybe for the slide for each page, and some metadata, some links, some additional categorical information. And that data could well be in a tabular format, in an Excel file, Google Sheet, anywhere, right? Once you have the data, and sometimes again it's easier to work with the data that's properly well maintained with a good schema, and then you want to create some very easy, simple, fast slides from that. So it seems to be a very good idea, right, to be able to automate creating a slide based on the data that you have. And that's what I want to talk about today. So the slides that you can see here is HTML format, is already available in a ready-made format. We just need to put the information in the HTML file, which I'm going to show you in an automated fashion how you would do that. But the end result would look like something like this, that that's the home page. I can interact with it, click on each page with arrow page. I can go over all these slides are created automatically with a pre-specified template which I created, and but the information from each page comes being grabbed using a Python simple Python file script, reads it from the data file and insert it here. So that's what I'm gonna talk about in this video. Coming to you next. First thing you need to have is a pre-specified template which you're happy with, and I have a video which the link is available in the video, which should come at you right in there as well, where I talk about how you can end up with a relatively good customized template such as this, or maybe a better version is like this. When you have too many information and you want to have a mix, so you lay out a couple of columns, some metadata information or links in the left hand side, some description in the right hand side, a mix floating with the image, and sometimes you have different topics, different image, and you want it to be your different slide page relatively in a consistent look, which I have here. Always my image look kind of the same size, same place, right? It's kind of automated to be in this fashion. So first step is you have a template for this slide, and but the thing is your information exists in a data file in a tabular format, let's say. How do you put it in this format in automated fashion, which is again relatively simple task, which but I already have a ready-made solution for you to be able to do it. It's much better than doing all the slide with from scratch. If you already have the information in data and you want to get a simple first grab of a stab at it in creating a slide based on that data, then it is a good solution. So if you want to see how I end up with this HTML format, look up that related other video. So in here what you have is the initial HTML file, which is available in the link that is provided to you in the description page. There is a page with related links that you can find. So that is the final item. What is my data look like then? As you can see, I have a description here, I have a title, I have an image, and I have three types of information. Sometimes they are empty, sometimes they have something, type, linguistic, figure. That's just the example. Or actually sometimes I added an additional item here as well. So this is actually the final result, what it looks like. So let's go to the code now. So This is the script file that I'm gonna provide you in that is provided to you in the link in description, and essentially with a sample data file. What the data file look like is something like this. So you have again the different objects or elements that you had in the HTML file, in the slide file format, which is in HTML format, but I'm actually running it locally. It's not hosted anywhere, but it can be. There are like name would be my title, alternative type, different things like linguistic root, stuff like that. That would be my the stuff that the items, elements that I wanted to put in the left hand side, and then meaning for me is that description that I had in the right hand side of the page in this slide, and I have a link for the image. So everything is already in a tabular format for me because that's how I stored it at some point. So what we need to do is read this. First step is read this file. That in this example I have it in a CSV format. That's a test to be able to use it simply. Then I have ready-made HTML file. I already have it, and I opened it to be able to read and write it, right? So that's where I have my HTML file here, and if you want to open it, that would be something like this. That's the HTML file. We're not going to go over it again. I have a related video where I explain how I end up using it. But what you need to know is where are your different elements that you want to connect from your data to this HTML file, right? So this is one example of a slide that I have. That's the HTML code for that, which I show you, right? So you have a title, you have different categorical information, links or tags or whatever in the left hand side. You have a text, itemized text here. The catch here is that I don't have just a bunch of text. Text is breaking down to different items, which is the same in the data as well, but I'm going to show you actually how is the same. So your text could be just a simple text string, then you just put it there. If you have actually divided your text to be multiple items, which I do, what I like to break down as text to be items, then I'm going to show you how you can store it, how in data, and how you can translate it to different lines. Each line is an item in HTML as well. And that's also the link for my image, right? So that's one example of the final web page the code would look like. Now, but I want to copy exact same thing, automatic, to fill these different elements from my data file, right? So I need to be able to tell the code that where do you want to start and put this new code. So let's say I added this start and end. So in this space, I'm gonna automate and create this additional slide for my data rows, data observations that I have, and put it there, and then save it as a new HTML file, and then I'm done. Right? So that's why you need to have some sort of way to tell the code where do you want to start and end to add that information. So that's the HTML. Let me go back. So far I read my file and I read my HTML file. The data file tells me the information that I have, and I want to put it in HTML. Okay, so essentially there are two steps. From now, for rest of it, hopefully that will be simple enough, and I'm gonna explain. The first step is if I have if each column is just one information that I want to put, then it's all good and I'm happy. I don't need to do anything else, and I can go to the next step. But I have two issues. One is my description, which I call here meaning, is not a big text, but it's breaking down to different sentences, each sentence being an item bullet. In the data, I specified it with a semicolon, you can specify with whatever, but you need to be consistent. So in the data, if I show you one example, if I don't have one example, but essentially that would be something like, let's have a look at something like even the first one. I think that's how I have it, not this one. Let me see the second line maybe. There you go. So this is a text in the data that if you see at some point, I should have at the end I have a semicolon. Sometimes actually I have more than one sentence. Maybe third row is a better example. That is it. There you go. So I have a semicolon here in between the text. That's how I have it is recorded, how I recorded in the data. So I have a semicolon, and that specify that from here you need to break it down. We're talking about two different items. So what I need to do, if you have a text such as this that you want to break it down, I did it here. I get rid of some text that I don't need to, some strings. At the end I split it based on the semicolon, and I store it in a list. XL is that list, and then I add the list to a new item. I call that new element, meaning that is the HTML string. That's the HTML itemized version of that big chunk of text that is splitted with semicolon. So I add these different chunks from the list that I created. So meaning would be essentially the final itemized version from that big text. So why did I need it? Because I wanted to break down the text in different elements, because in the data it's already broken down with a specific character, right? So that's one thing. Again, in different application you may want to have something like this when you want to split the text by some character. Another thing is sometimes in this example I may have more than one image, but in the HTML you need to specify exactly what's the image address. So I make sure I'm getting the first image link if again they are being separated with semicolon. And that's actually what I recommend, one way of recording information if you're writing down in a Google Sheet, in Excel yourself, or however. Sometimes in tabular format it's tricky to record big information in one cell. Sometimes you need to break it down, but that creates a sparse data. One thing you want to do is a consistent recording of information, multiple instances of one information in one cell, but at some point you need to break it down, which I did it here with breaking down by semicolon. Okay, that's the first step. The second step is much easier, I promise you. That is, I just copied in text the HTML code of each slide, and I have certain elements inserted into it, and I repeat this. That's in a loop. I repeat this for each row observation in my data. That's a new slide, and that's a new slide element here as well. As you can see, instead of type I use that is the way I access to each cell of a specific column from each row. There is definitely a smarter way where you can apply a data frame of operation to do all that things, but again I'm not talking about the large data here, and this is fast enough and good enough for me. And same here. So again, sometimes I may have missing data, and in order to get rid of error from missing data, I convert it to a string, but I got rid of the nan that is created. Again, there's better way to doing this, but that's one way to make sure that works for me. So these are, I already know which column, which cell I use for where in the HTML, right? And if you're happy with the format, you can use the link and just go ahead with it and maybe apply certain specific customization, like these elements for you could name different things, and you may add or subtract different elements on your HTML file if you have additional columns. So these are the different left hand side things that I had. Let me refresh your memory. That's this stuff. Essentially each of them comes from a different column, right? And each slide is a new row in the data file. So last thing is the meaning. I added here, which is the meaning I converted to a itemized item. I put it inside this UL container or small section, and that's my image URL. I put it, and then I add all the slides together. Now I have the slides new content created from the automated from data file. I need to put this between the start and end that I show you at first. I specified it where I need to put this new information. I'm gonna put it there, and there you go. So I already did this. That would be again what I'm doing here. This is kind of, I found that this line gives you all the first part of the HTML file up to the character where you, after that you want to put the new information. That's what it gives you. This is essentially everything else at the end of the section where you want to put from the Python script, which when you put it and you run the whole thing, I'm creating a different HTML file just to make sure, and that's how you write your final element in HTML file and save it. And lastly, that would be the final result to show you one final time. This is a good solution, especially for metadata type of information that you have, and you want to put it in a relatively consistent format. Hopefully that's useful for you for some good use cases. See you in next video.